Most people who are financially struggling do not consider themselves broke. They have a car payment, a streaming subscription stack, a closet full of things they financed, and a credit score that is slowly deteriorating. But in their mind, they are just living. This is not a story about poverty. It is a story about something quieter and more widespread. The gap between what people earn and what they spend, and how that gap tends to grow in silence. According to Federal Reserve data, a significant share of American households, including many with above median incomes, would struggle to cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing or selling something. That number has moved around over time, and researchers debate the exact figures, but the underlying finding is consistent. Income alone does not determine financial stability. Spending behavior does. This video explores the reasons behind this gap, its widening, and what happens when it finally catches up. Behavioral economists have identified a concept called the pain of pain, the mild psychological discomfort people feel when they part with money. Research by Drazen Prelick and Duncan Symester at MIT found that pain with cash tends to feel more painful than swiping a card, which is why credit and tap-to-pay technology can systematically increase spending. The friction is gone. The mental accounting is blurred. There is also the role of what psychologists call present bias, the tendency to overweight immediate rewards versus future consequences. People do not spend money they cannot afford because they are irrational. They spend it because the reward is right now, and the consequence is abstract and distant. A dinner out is real. The $38 in interest charges next month is theoretical. These are not character flaws. They are documented features of human cognition that financial products are specifically designed to exploit. Lifestyle inflation, sometimes called lifestyle creep, is what happens when spending rises in proportion to income or faster. The raise comes through, the budget loosens, a nicer apartment feels reasonable. A newer car is now justifiable. A gym upgrade seems modest. Each decision can appear sensible in isolation. Together, they eliminate the buffer. Psychologists call the underlying mechanism hedonic adaptation, the tendency for humans to return to a baseline level of satisfaction after any improvement. The new apartment becomes ordinary. The upgraded car becomes routine. Spending required to maintain that lifestyle, however, does not go away. It compounds. It is worth being precise here. Not all spending increases are lifestyle creep. Rising housing costs, healthcare premiums, and childcare expenses represent structural cost of living pressures that have grown significantly faster than wages for many households over the past 2 decades. The challenge is distinguishing between inflation that is external and unavoidable and inflation that is chosen and incremental. Both exist. Both matter. Perhaps the most counterintuitive finding in personal finance research is that high income does not reliably prevent financial fragility. Surveys conducted by organizations, including PIMPS and Lending Club, have found that a substantial portion of households earning 6 figures report living paycheck to paycheck. The definition matters. Researchers define the term differently, but the pattern is consistent. Why? Because in many professional and social environments, income increases are accompanied by corresponding increases in visible consumption. The expectations attached to certain income brackets, neighborhood, vehicle, vacation, wardrobe, are not written down anywhere, but they are socially enforced. Research in economic sociology suggests that consumption is partly positional. People spend not just to meet needs, but to signal status within their reference group. A person earning $150,000 a year can be financially fragile if their fixed obligations consume most of it. Income is not wealth. Cash flow management is what determines resilience. The lottery winner who ends up broke is often treated as a punchline. It is actually a documented financial phenomenon. Research by economists, including those who have studied Florida lottery winners, found that receiving a large lump sum does not, by itself, protect against bankruptcy. In one widely cited study, winners of mid-sized prizes showed elevated rates of bankruptcy several years later compared to smaller winners, in part because the windfall enabled spending patterns that were not sustainable once the money ran out. The mechanism is the same as lifestyle creep, compressed into a shorter timeline. The spending anchors to a new normal. The income, or windfall, eventually ends. The obligations remain. This is not a story unique to lottery winners. It applies to professional athletes, musicians, and anyone whose income arrives in large, unpredictable chunks and whose spending adapts upward faster than the income can be sustained. Vehicle financing is one of the clearest examples of lifestyle inflation with a price tag attached. According to Experian's automotive finance data, the average monthly payment on a new vehicle loan has consistently risen over recent years and now sits well above $700 for many buyer segments. Loan terms of 72 and 84 months, 6 and 7 years, have become increasingly common. Here's the financial reality of that. A vehicle depreciates. It is not an appreciating asset. Stretching a loan to 7 years means paying interest on something that is losing value throughout the entire period. At a typical auto loan APR of somewhere between 6% and 10%, depending on credit profile and lender, the total cost of a $50,000 vehicle financed over 84 months can be meaningfully higher than the sticker price, and the vehicle's market value will be a fraction of what is owed for much of that term. The monthly payment feels manageable. The total cost of ownership, interest, depreciation, insurance, maintenance, is something most buyers do not calculate before signing. Buy now, pay later products have grown rapidly. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has tracked this market closely and noted that the structure of these products, splitting a purchase into 4 interest-free installments, can reduce the psychological weight of any individual transaction. A $200 item feels like a $50 item. The commitment is real. The perception is altered. CFPB research has also raised concerns about borrowers carrying multiple simultaneous BNPL obligations across different platforms that are not always visible to other lenders or reflected in credit reports. This creates a form of invisible leverage. The person appears creditworthy because the obligations do not appear in standard reporting until the cash flow reality makes itself known. It is also worth noting that not all BNPL users are misusing the product. Some use it as a genuine, zero-cost installment tool for planned purchases. The risk is concentrated among users who adopt it as a way to access things they cannot otherwise afford and who stack multiple commitments simultaneously. One of the more structurally dangerous combinations in personal finance is variable income paired with fixed spending obligations. This applies to freelancers, commission-based salespeople, gig workers, and, increasingly, content creators whose income is tied to algorithm-dependent platform performance. The problem is straightforward. Fixed expenses do not adjust downward when income falls. A lease signed during a strong earnings quarter does not renegotiate itself when the brand deals stop coming. An influencer earning $20,000 one month and $4,000 the next does not have a predictable budget. But if their lifestyle is built around the $20,000 baseline, the gaps become debt. Empirical research on gig economy workers consistently finds that income volatility is associated with higher financial stress, even among workers whose average income compares favorably to traditional employment. The same logic applies to bonus-dependent corporate compensation. If a household's budget requires the annual bonus to balance, and the bonus depends on business performance, then a single bad year becomes a financial crisis. There is a straightforward diagnostic that financial planners sometimes use. It goes like this. If you lost your primary income source tomorrow, how long could your current financial obligations be met using only liquid savings? For households with 3 to 6 months of expenses in reserve, a figure commonly cited by financial planning professionals as a baseline target? The answer is manageable. For households with $400 or less in accessible savings, it is measured in days. Federal Reserve survey data have consistently found that a meaningful proportion of American households fall into the latter category. When lifestyle obligations accumulate, the lease, the subscriptions, the car payment, the minimum credit card payments, the fixed cost floor rises. Each additional commitment narrows the margin. A layoff that might have been a manageable inconvenience for someone with a modest lifestyle becomes a cascading financial crisis for someone whose obligations leave no room. The stress test is not hypothetical. Job loss, medical events, and economic downturns happen. The question is whether the financial structure built in the good times can absorb a real shock. What this pattern reveals is not a problem of discipline or character. It is a problem of systems and incentives. Consumer finance products are designed to reduce the friction of spending. Social environments create real and implicit pressure to match the consumption of peers. And human psychology is wired to weigh the present more heavily than the future. The corrective is not a moral stance. It is a structural one. Households that separate savings at the moment income arrives, before discretionary spending has the chance to absorb it, are doing something that behavioral economists call pre-commitment. They are removing the decision from the moment of temptation and automating it in advance. The research on this approach is reasonably strong. The gap between income and financial stability is real, and it is wide, but it is not mysterious. The mechanism is visible in the data, understandable in the psychology, and in many, but not all cases, changeable in behavior. The first step is simply seeing it clearly.